2 years ago, two LGBTQ people were murdered in cold blood on the streets of the Slovakian capital Bratislava, which is my hometown. The reaction of the politicians was awful. The situation didn't change. We still have no protections and no rights. So I figured, as a person who's living mostly in the West and studies in the West, that people in the West actually have no clue how hardcore it is to be LGBTQ person in Eastern Europe. So I figured maybe you want to spare 10 minutes and understand how the life of a gay person differs in East and the West. Listen up. So this is a deeply personal topic, right? Because I'm super frustrated about what's happening with LGBTQ rights in Eastern Europe. So I want to talk about the rights, the brain drain, the safety, and the reasons why the status quo is in this awful of a state that it is. But before that, I want to ask you to spare a little bit of love. So I'm trying to propagate the LGBTQ leadership because I feel like the community needs public leaders who are out and proud and showing that you can be a successful gay person. But for that, it's really important to get a certain reach. And for that, it really helps to get a subscribe or to get a like or to share the video. So if you can spare that, I'll be super, super thankful. And now to the meat of the video. First of all, rights. I'm going to start with Slovakia, but also I'm going to explain some of the other countries that I have visibility to. Rights are essentially not a thing, right? In Slovakia, you can't adopt, you can't marry, you can't even register as a registered partnership. There's virtually no rights. The only thing that we have is the anti-discrimination law. So we can go and say, oh, I've been discriminated against. But I think it's rarely enforced. It happens single units of cases since it was established. So it's really bad. You're essentially a second-class citizen if you're a gay person in Slovakia. Similar in Poland. I mean, Poland is famously Christian, right? It's even worse. I remember that when there were one of the first prides in Poland, the police would attack them with the water cannons, which was pretty hardcore. By the way, the first pride in Bratislava, I mean, I was a teenager back then. There was a speaker from, I think, Holland's embassy, from Netherlands embassy, and the anti-protesters, so the neo-Nazis, would throw stones at her and seriously injured her. So this is roughly the thing that I grew up in, right? Hungary, we don't have to talk about LGBTQ rights. And essentially, the more east you go, the worse it becomes. Like in Russia, the rumor has it that if you commit a hate crime against LGBTQ person, so if you beat a gay guy on the street, the courts are not even going to pick it up. They're essentially going to dismiss it and don't protect the people if they're LGBTQ. Not to mention that you cannot propagate that you're LGBTQ publicly. You cannot hold hands because they claim that it destroys the education of the youth, which I mean, why educate to tolerance, right? And by the way, they also don't allow LGBTQ apps. So we don't monetize in Russia because of the war. So we don't really want to, monetize in states like these. But also, we are virtually banned there, right? You get this letter from Duma, which is their parliament, which says, oh yeah, you are propagating unhealthy and not moral lifestyle and sexuality content, which we don't, right? We are very decent dating app. We are not a hookup app. So yeah, you can't be in our app store. Bye. And then the app store forbids you based on the Duma request, which is pretty awful. It happened to us and it happened to so many other competitors in the LGBTQ dating industry. Awful. So rights in Eastern Europe are not really a thing. I think the country that might be doing the best or one of the best is Czech Republic. I'm in Prague right now. You can register here. And they recently had a law about marriages that would also allow adoptions, but that didn't pass. They landed on some compromise that, yeah, you can marry, but you can't adopt. So in here, you also are essentially a second-class citizen, just a little bit less second-class as in the other European countries. But it's still pretty bad. We are still suffering from the scars of the socialism that was super conservative and didn't allow for diversity. So that's one. As you can imagine, which brings me to my second topic, which is brain drain. If this is happening to you and the society effectively hates you or doesn't allow you to reach your full potential, doesn't allow you to start a family, doesn't allow you to marry a person who you love, you're not very keen to stay here. So I mean, brain drain in general is pretty bad. From Slovakia, 20%, so 1 out of 5 people who go to university abroad. There is no research for the number of how many LGBTQ people leave the country when they go to studies, but it's going to be higher. Like 10 years ago, I had a lot of LGBTQ friends in Bratislava who were successful and, were sort of contributing to the community. Now, I have one person who I consider truly successful, maybe two. Everybody else left. And I'm talking CEOs of large companies valued for, $250 million, $500,000. They would sell their shares and leave. Or they would just run the company from abroad because they refuse to live in a country that don't recognize them as a full-fledged citizens, yet collect millions of dollars in taxes from them. It's ridiculous. So the brain drain is awful. And you can see that on dating. Like if you go out in Bratislava, and now I'm not saying that it's impossible to find a clever guy, but first of all, almost no one is left. And the people who are left are quite often have a reason why they haven't left, right? Like they're either very small-minded, conservative, or they are just not that bright. And I'm not saying there are no bright people in Bratislava. It's just, from my experience, a bit more difficult to stumble upon them than in other, especially Western European countries. And that also kind of correlates with the third topic that I wanted to talk about, that's safety. In Prague, it's okay to go hand in hand with my boyfriend, who's German, and I feel safe. There are parts of Prague when I wouldn't do it, but mostly you feel safe. There are also parts of, San Francisco or LA when you would question whether this is a clever decision. But in Bratislava, in the city center, Friday night, after the sunset, I would not recommend. And I'm a 2-meter guy who has 90 kilograms and quite a bit of muscle mass. I would still not recommend that. If you go more east, like to other Slovakian cities, I would really not recommend that. Like you will get looks, people will yell at you, and if you do it late enough, when people are drunk, you have a decent chance that they will attack you because it's just super, super conservative place. And not to mention if you go more and more and more to the east, even, again, my boyfriend is from Germany and he was kind of surprised, but in some of the cities or in the region where my mom comes from, so in the eastern Slovakia, we actively tell him yeah, we can't just show that we are a couple because it's dangerous here. So why is this happening? Why are people so evil? So, spoiler alert, they are not really evil. These are just countries that are scarred by socialism, which was rather conservative and rather traditional. Also, we very often talk about very originally Christian countries like Poland, Slovakia, right? There are very, very Christian countries. It's not random that Czech Republic is one of the only post-socialistic countries that is progressing the rights, though slowly, but progressing them. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, there is quite a few authoritarian politicians that are trying to win power. Like in Slovakia, it's Fico. There is Orban in Hungary. You have Babiš in Czech Republic, etc. And one of the very popular ways how to do it is to find a public enemy. And it might be migrants, it might be LGBTQ people, it might be transgender people. And they use the natural xenophobia that people have to alienate this group of people and essentially say that they are dangerous to the society. And these people might not necessarily win elections. In Slovakia they did. Great. But actually also in Hungary. Okay, it's not going very well in this part of Europe. But even if they wouldn't win elections, just by perpetrating these ideas into the society, they're already hurting the people, right? Because somewhere on the back of the mind of a sample of the population is, okay, these transgender people are trying to convert our children into having a different gender. And people in Slovakia think this. Full on, they think this. So that's the second reason, right? This perpetration of negative stereotypes about the community. Third one, propaganda. There is multiple points of Russian propaganda. From Russia, there are even people in Slovakia who are sitting in jail for taking bribes from Russian governmental officials to propagate Russian viewpoints. And then people believe crazy things. They believe that there is forced changes of gender of small kids in US. Absolutely insane narratives. So that's the third reason, just complete confusion with conspiracy theories that are spread from different sources, including other states further east. And the last one, I think that LGBTQ rights in these countries are quite often used as a proxy for general liberalism, wokeism, progressivism. So even if people like would be kind of okay to have like registered partnerships or even marriages, they are not going to budge on it because they feel like it might be a slippery slope towards, I don't know, some further rights for transgender people or for adoptions that they are just not ready to accept yet. And I think these are the 4 reasons. Let me know if you can find another reason. Let me know if you are a Western person and anticipated that it works like this in Eastern Europe. Let me know if you are an Eastern person and you feel that there is something that I forgot.